how much that word has shaped our world. How many lives have grown into personhood because of faith? What is faith? A man answered that question 2,000 years ago. He said that faith is the assurance that something we want will come to pass. He said that faith is to be certain of things which we can't even see. Faith is when one dares to go farther than he can see, to be willing to trust without any evidence that he should trust. How much faith does a person need? Well, that question also has been answered. It was answered by a Galilean carpenter as he stood on the Mount of Olives and taught his disciples. He said if we had faith as small as a tiny mustard seed, that it would be enough to work miracles. What has faith done for people? Well, it's put a song in their hearts. It has brought sight to their eyes. It has put movement into their muscles and joy into their lives. Faith has founded empires. It has established principles. It has changed the world. Those who have accomplished the most for mankind have been people of faith. Faith? Faith in whom? Faith in God, first of all, for He's the author of faith. And without faith in Him, all else loses its high purpose. Faith in ourselves next. This, too, is of utmost importance. And if you have faith that you can, then you'll find a way, and the whole world can't stop you. And faith also in our fellow man. This faith will be shaken often, and even broken at times, but you must never lose it. Because if faith in your fellow man dies, then your hope for a better world dies also. Above all, remember that God has faith in you. That's the reason behind the cross. That's the purpose of the empty tomb. He has faith that you will choose the highest, the best, the purest. Don't ever lose this wonderful thing we call faith, for life is dull and void and ugly without it. So keep faith in God, in yourself, and in your fellow man. Faith will pull you up when you're down. Faith will heal your wounds when you're hurt. Faith will help you extend a helping hand to a brother who has wronged you. And faith will heal the sickness in your heart. Seek out faith. Find her. Pay whatever price is asked for her. And let her be your constant companion on the road of life. She'll make you richer than all the money the world has.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildman, a production of the American Family Association.
Of 1.5 million children from the Holocaust, the only two names we heard that day were the names of the same two sisters that I had printed off and put in my purse.
The Joy Lucius book, titled Priceless Pennies, Rose and Odette, Unknown Children of the Holocaust, is the miraculous story of family, faith, and friendship. It's available now at resources.afa.net.
Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. According to His great mercy, He has caused us to be born again to a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead. 1 Peter 1:3.
American Family Radio. This is today's issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of today's issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of today's issues.
And welcome back, folks. Ed Vitagliano sitting in for Tim Wildman today. I'm joined in studio by Fred Jackson and Chris Woodward. Well, we were talking about in the first segment, Supreme Court has ruled on the what's being called the immunity case. The Supreme Court ruling that presidents have protection from prosecution for official acts in those cases. And we are going to momentarily be joined by Jenna Ellis, who is host of Jenna Ellis in the Morning, heard on American Family Radio, weekdays at 7 a.m. Central Time. And we are getting her her on the phone. Folks, it will not be traditionally, normally we have people like Alex McFarland or Jenna Ellis on with us by what's called Comrex, which is a little bit of handy technology. She's away from her Comrex, and it will be by phone. So sometimes the quality is not what we desire, but we're going to take what we can get when it comes to Jenna.
In times like this, when we're talking about telecom problems, I just blame the government. If we would only pour more money into things, it would be okay.
Yeah, so that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
So you're
just
gonna
throw more money at it, you know.
You're going to start.
What's another 10 trillion in debt, Ed?
All right, Jenna, are you there?
I am indeed, and I would just like to say we should clearly pour more money into Pete Buttigieg, you know, because he should be over telecoms and all of that, and then it would be absolutely great. We get like 3 more phone booths.
Yes,
you know,
because what is it, 7 or 8, 10 billion? How much was it that the government spent and got like 7 or 8 charging stations, and he was for electric vehicles, and he was proud of it.
It was a lot.
So ridiculous.
Okay. All right, Jenna, so we already mentioned who you are, Jenna Ellis, host of Jenna Ellis in the Morning. So what do you make of this SCOTUS ruling?
I think it is a great day for the country, and certainly it is a great decision for President Trump, because I think we are going to see at least some of these charges from the DOJ that are dismissed under presidential immunity. But regardless of how the analysis in particular is applied to Donald Trump's various cases from the DOJ in D.C. and in Florida, and then potentially also some of the other state-level cases, including Georgia, this is a great decision for the future of our country, because what this does is still establishes not only the separation of powers, but also the specific limited authority that is given to each branch by the Constitution. And so the court in its ruling specifically said that official acts that are taken by a sitting president have immunity, and we have had legislative immunity in that same regard on the books for a long time. So, for example, as much as you and I and probably a lot of our listeners really hate to see all of the legislators that voted to fund Ukraine, we can't go out and sue them civilly, and certainly a prosecutor cannot prosecute them criminally for that vote. Our remedy and our option is to vote them out of office, or to petition them, or other types of remedies that are not judicial in function. And so for the court here, it's a very easy analysis, and I'll give you this example. When I was working for former President Trump on his campaign, he would take Air Force One, the plane, on official trips when he was the president, and then he would take the plane to rallies. And when he was on official trips, then that was taxpayer funded, because that's his plane. He's the president. When he would use that plane for campaign rallies, the campaign would pay for it. So there's a clear distinction between candidate Trump and those acts versus President Trump and those acts. And so for all of the, hysteria from the dissent and the mainstream media saying, this is going to undermine democracy and all that stuff, I think this is preserving our republic to say that, of course, a sitting president has presidential immunity for official acts, but of course he should still have civil and criminal liability for unofficial acts, just like every regular American. And we already saw that, and the court referenced that in the Clinton v. Jones case, where sitting President Clinton was still civilly liable for unofficial acts in his private capacity. So now what happened is that this case is remanded back to the lower court for a determination, and that parsing between what was official versus unofficial. And I'm sure we're going to have a lot of litigation, a lot of arguments. Trump lawyers are going to say everything was official. The DOJ is going to say nothing was official. And we're going to get somewhere in the middle. And then those decisions will be litigated as well. But ultimately, what the Supreme Court held was the separation of powers matters, specific limited powers matters, and immunity absolutely matters, and they're absolutely right.
Jenna, it's Fred here. So, yeah, as you mentioned, it goes back to the lower court again. I think many would expect that the lower court will say, for instance, the speech on January the 6th was not an official act of the president. Do you think that's where the debate's going to come down to in that case, the January 6th case?
Well, I don't know that he's necessarily been specifically charged for that. I mean, if you're talking, so I think that this is going to go to each of the overt acts that were in furtherance. So I don't think that he's actually been charged with inciting insurrection. I mean, I'd have to go back and read the DOJ complaint on that. But in terms of what overt acts are outside of his official capacity, that's where the debate is going to center. So, for example, he wasn't charged in Georgia for the phone call with Raffensperger, right? But let's just say hypothetically that he had been. Then the conversation and the litigation would center on whether that phone call, even though it was from the White House, he was the sitting president, whether that was done in the official capacity as a president calling a Secretary of State asking about the election administration, or whether that was as candidate Trump asking and inquiring of the Secretary of State on his own behalf during the election where he was a candidate. So that's where the conversation and the litigation is going to focus in terms of each of the alleged overt acts, and then of course with respect to each criminal charge in the DOJ's case. And I think that that Trump's lawyers are going to make a likely colorable argument that this applies even to the documents case as well, because even if he was out of office, they could make a colorable claim that he was still acting with respect to his presidential authority with record keeping, and that should still have immunity. And whether or not Judge Cannon in Florida will buy that argument, I think that that's also going to come up in light of this decision.
I have a question for you. This case was heard in April, late April, somewhere around the 23rd of April. And the decision we expected last week, if not the week before, at some point in June. Any ideas as to why this case, which, if I'm understanding everything correctly, wasn't a 100% yes or no, we're never going to talk about this again kind of ruling? Why did it take this long for a ruling like this to be announced?
That is a great question. It should not have taken this long. And my only thought, and this is pure speculation on my part, is that the majority wanted to wait and to try to delay all of this past the election, which they should not be political, but it appears that way to me.
Okay. Now, let me ask you this. So I'm understanding a lot of what you're saying, okay? Here's my question, though. Now, in terms of carrying out the responsibilities of, official capacity of the president, okay, I think most of us and our listeners probably understand that. Now, President Trump famously said, I could shoot someone on Madison Avenue and get away with it, okay? Something to that effect. So does this ruling have any bearing on making a distinction between criminal and non-criminal? It seems like it would, that for those on the left, for example, who are complaining, the president's not above the law. We hear that over and over again. But it seems like the Supreme Court